Hi, today on Gary's Urban Larder, I'm going to share with you my recipe for my lemon drizzle pound cake. I think you're going to enjoy it because I like it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Gary's Urban Larder. My name is Gary Rice and this is my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my lemon pound cake. And here's the thing, I don't like lemons. In fact, citrus fruits in general are not my favorite. If I had to choose the cake I least like, it would be a lemon cake. But I do love to bake, so I made it my mission to develop a lemon cake that I actually enjoy, and I did this years ago. And this is my lemon pound cake recipe, and it's the one that my family and friends request me to make all the time. Honestly, I have made it so many times, I've lost count. And what's funny is I've shared versions of this recipe before, but there's always been a little something missing. Now, whether I left it out on purpose or just forgot, who knows? But today, I've written it down and I'm finally ready to share the full recipe. But before we jump in, I want to hear from you. Do you have any foods you can't stand or any flavors you've had to learn to like? Let me know in the comments below. If you've ever made a dish that you didn't think you'd enjoy, but somehow you managed to have it turn out into something you love. So I think this equates across life. If there's something you don't like, face it, accept it as a challenge. I try to turn my aversions into things that I love. So if life gives you lemons, bake a cake. Let's go. Okay, first I'll go over the ingredients. I've got my tin here and I've got some melted butter and a little bit of flour. So I'm going to brush that in and then add the flour, and then we're going to put that in the fridge to chill. The ingredients I have: room temperature butter, unsalted, room temperature cream cheese, sugar, and 6 eggs. I'm going to cream together the butter, the cream cheese, and the sugar and add my eggs one by one. To the dry ingredients, which we're actually going to assemble first after doing the tin, I have flour, salt, baking soda, and cream of tartar. I'm also going to zest each of these lemons and add that to the flour. That gives it a beautiful aroma and a very delicate flavor as well. We're also going to add the juice of one of these lemons into the batter at the end, and that brings us on to the liquids, which I have, in addition to the lemon juice, some vanilla and sour cream. So I think we're ready. So let's get started by preparing our tin. So I'm just taking the melted butter and pouring that into the tin. I'm going to take my pastry brush, because this is a very uniquely shaped tin, and just use that to brush that butter into all the nooks and crannies, all the crevices, before flouring it, because we do not want our beautiful cake to stick. We want it to come out very easily. So I'm just going to finish this, getting all of that together. And as it hits the metal of the pan, it does start to congeal, which is fine, because that's one of the reasons we're going to place it in the refrigerator. We want that to hold and melt when it gets in the oven, in order that we can get our cake out. So it's just to make sure the batter itself doesn't stick. So I'm going to get all these points really, really well. Before we add our flour. It's just like painting, honestly. And it may seem like quite a bit to do to prep, but like painting, doing your prep work first is really, really very important if you want the finished result to be just right. And we're going for some perfection. So, okay, I've got that painted on now. And now I'm going to add my flour. And I'm going to get that all around the surface. So, there's the excess. And you see we've got it nicely prepped. So I'm just going to put that in to chill. And then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm just going to make a little more space for us here. And the first thing I'm going to do is to lift the bowl and start to cream together the cream cheese and the butter. I'm just going to put that in my stand mixer. I love my stand mixer. And now I don't have to deal with KitchenAid. Not yet, anyway. So I'm just going to combine those. And I'm just going to start that very slow, just so you start to combine them. I've got my little edge here, which will help me pour in my sugar. Now, full list of ingredients and instructions are available in the description box. If you look, you'll see a link. Click on it. It takes you to my website. And there you have all the measures, both imperial and in metric. And if you do have any questions, just ask in the comments. I do respond, and I love hearing from you. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Come on. It's a lot of fun. Okay, I've got that going, and that looks beautiful, actually. And you can just take a look at that. And now we'll start to add our eggs one at a time. So as that's going, I have it on slow speed. Use 1 egg. Now let that incorporate well. It doesn't take a lot, but we just want to add them. And once I don't see any yellow, we'll add the next egg. That's 2. And it really couldn't be simpler. There's 3. 4. 5. And 6. While that's blending, I'm going to roll my lemon on the countertop, which breaks the skin and releases the oils. And you can see how the smell, how fragrant it becomes. Now, I think that's good, so I'm just going to turn that off. And I'm just going to zest this first lemon. I may do both. Depends on how much zest I want. Now that is literally a pound of flour, 500 grams of flour, and it was 500 grams of sugar, a pound of sugar, and the butter, half a pound, 250 grams, the cream cheese, the same. So this is literally a pound cake by weight, weighted measure, which is the way most recipes were done. They are typically weighted measure here in Europe. But in the States, even though I think there's a movement towards using weighted measures, it's mostly imperial cups, ounces, teaspoons, etc. Now that's quite a bit, but I'm actually going to add a little bit more. I'm not going to do the whole lemon, but the fragrance from the skin, and you want to make sure you don't want to get the pith. You don't want the white part. That's the bitter part. So you just want to get that outer zest. And just use a microplane like I'm using. And there you have it. Okay? So I'm going to add our salt, our baking soda, and our cream of tartar. Now, some of you may not know cream of tartar or have heard of it. It's a stabilizer and a leavener as well, like the baking soda. They react slightly differently. And I'm just going to whisk this to combine so that we get the nice fragrance throughout. Okay? And the baking soda reacts with the lemon juice, which we're going to add, because of the acid in it. It reacts, and that helps to leaven. And then the heat with the cream of tartar also helps that to be more stable. We also have the sour cream, which will have that acidity. So I'm just going to juice one of our lemons to get all of our liquids together. So it really couldn't be easier. And what we're going to do is just alternate between the dry and the wet ingredients, ending with dry. And the thing we don't want to do is to over whip, is to over mix. We do not want to over mix. So great. Again, get a few things out of the way here. Got my dry mixture. So I'm going to add my dry. I'm going to start with the dry. Start with the dry, finish with the dry. So I'm just going to add some of that. Or even starting the mixer. Give that a tap. And we're going to start very slowly. Now, if you have that happen, where your flour flies up, here's a trick. Just take a tea towel, a clean one, and just cover it. And that way, everything falls back into the pan. So that's I'm going to add the vanilla flavoring. I'm going to add a bit more of the dry. So it's thirds, really. You see that's on my Greek speed. Make sure I get all my flour in. And then I'm going to add my sour cream. Okay, see, nothing really difficult. And then I'm going to add the rest of my flour, the dry ingredients. Whoa! Added it a little too quickly there. Made a mess. That's okay. And I don't want to overmix that. So actually, a bit more, very slowly, just until that flour is incorporated. Okay? Now, I've got a bit of a mess, so I'm going to stop, I'm going to tidy up, and then we'll come back and we'll add our batter into our prepared tin. Okay, we're back. And some of you may have noticed I forgot to add the lemon juice. So I'm going to add that now. I know I said to finish with the dry ingredients, and I stand by that, but I made a mistake. I'm only human, so we'll just combine. Whoa! We'll just combine that. And you see why you don't want to end with the wet. So we'll just combine that in. That gives us our flavoring. And it's very quick. You don't want to overmix your cake batter, because that will just activate the glutens in the flour, and you want to avoid that. So now I remove it from the stand. I'm going to take my spatula and clean the blade beater here. What I'm going to do also is just to run my spatula around the bowl and make sure that everything has been combined, that we don't have any big clumps of something just lurking there. So I'm just going to take that around the sides and through the bottom and just make sure. And it looks good. And you can see the consistency of the batter. It's a fairly heavy batter. I've got the prepared bundt in, and I'm just going to then add my batter for my cake. Now, I'm not going to overfill this, so I'm just going to judge it. See, I've got a bit left. It'll be cupcakes. So what I want to do is get all the air pockets out. So I want to tamp it against the countertop and make sure that all the air pockets are out. I think I've got space for a little bit more, not much more. So this probably would be better for a different tin, maybe a 12-cup flat 2 pan, which I often do, but I love the shape of this pan, so I wanted to do that. So there we have it. You can see it's not filled to the top. And what I'm going to do now is place this in a cold oven, and I'm going to heat it until 180 Celsius to 350 Fahrenheit. And that'll take about 15 to 20 minutes. When it comes up to temperature, I'm going to drop it back down. 320, 315 in Fahrenheit, 160 in Celsius. And so I'm going to then cook it for a further 60 to 70 minutes. And I'll test it. And we've got a little time to bake. So while it's baking, we'll make the glaze. All right. So I've just put a little flat tray to put my tin on It shouldn't overflow, but just in case it does, then it keeps the oven from getting messy. So as I say, put it in the oven, cold oven method, bring that temperature up to 350, 180 Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit, 180 Celsius. And then once it reaches temp, we'll drop it back to around 315, 310 Fahrenheit, 160 Celsius. And we'll let it bake until a wooden skewer comes out clean. That's the old test. Never fails, all right? Don't buy an expensive cake tester. Just use a wooden skewer, okay? All right, it goes in the oven now. Okay, our oven just came up to temperature, and I've just reduced it. So we've got about another hour, but I thought I'd show you the glaze. So for the glaze, we'll have the juice of a lemon, we have some softened butter, and we have confectioner's sugar. Now, it will vary in terms of the amounts, but they are in the link in the description box. It will vary because the size of your lemon, how much juice is in your lemon, how much icing sugar you're using. I'm using about 200 grams. And, you know, you can adjust it. You can add more lemon juice. You can add a little less. Do not omit the butter because it helps the glaze to have a shine. And it's just really important. So I'm adding that. And I'm just going to whisk that all together now. Very slowly. And to create my glaze. And this is icing sugar or confectioner's sugar, as some may know it. You can see it is a little thick. See if I can get any more juice out of my lemon. There's a bit more. So I'm just going to let that drain through. So I've got a tray here that I've lined with parchment paper and a wire rack. So our cake is going to cool on that when it comes out of the oven. I'm ready to take it out of the tin, and then I'll immediately pour some of the glaze over. So the paper will make cleanup a little bit easier. Let's see, I've got some more juice. Okay. That will loosen it a bit. And if not, you've got a couple of options. You can add a bit of water, another liquid. I'm going to probably add a little bit of milk, whole milk, actually, to loosen it. But I want to do that once I've really got that sugar incorporated. And I know lemon and milk, they curdle. It will curdle it. Lemon will curdle your milk. So that's why before adding any milk to this, I want that well combined. Okay, I've got a little bit of milk. I'm just going to add a little at a time. Again, until I get a nice creamy pouring consistency. You see how that loosened up? Again, I want to combine all of that in together before I add any more. So it needs a little bit more. And this is really where you have to trust your own sense of things. And if it's too wet, too liquid, add a bit more icing sugar. You know, this is very forgiving. So I like to get it the consistency of cream. So see that? That is almost what I'm looking for. Because we've got an hour to wait, this will start to stiffen up. So I am going to add a bit more liquid, and then we're done. So I've probably added 2.5 tablespoons, what is that, 75 mils in total into this. But again, it will vary. So it'll just vary. And that's one of the joys of cooking and baking. That's good. You see that? Just think of a heavy cream or whipping cream. And that's the consistency you're looking for. So that, our glaze is finished. All we need now is the cake. I've just pulled the cake out of the oven. It is looking beautiful. So it just needs to stand here for 10 to 15 minutes. It'll start to pull away from the tin, and then we'll turn it out and we'll add the glaze. And it smells phenomenal. I get the lemon. I smell butter from it. Just a hint of vanilla. It's beautiful. So join me in a really very, very short time and we'll glaze this thing. It's going to have to cool completely before I can slice it, but I know it's going to be worth the wait. Stick around to the end, please. If you've made it this far, though, it might be a good time to subscribe. If you haven't, give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Really helps my channel grow, and I appreciate that so very, very much. Thanks. Okay, as you can see, I've had a little camera problem, but I'm going to try and release this from the tin. Hope for the best. Oh my goodness. That looks amazing. Isn't that beautiful? So now I'm just going to pour our glaze over. And you can see why I have the tray under in the paper. Look at that. That is just beautiful. So, okay, I'm not going to use all the glaze. I'm going to reserve a little bit to make sure I get every fin. And then I do have some that's run through, which I can recover with a pastry brush. Also a good reason to line your tray. So join me in a little while. We're going to pour some more glaze. And drizzle it over our cake. And once that sets, we are going to slice the cake and taste it. So stick around for the tasting. Stick around for the tasting. Well, our glaze is set. The cake is cooled. I've transferred it to this cake stand. And now, the most important part I've really been waiting for is to cut it and taste it. So just pull it out. It looks very tender, really beautiful crumb. I'll just hold that up for you to see. And now, the important part. Oh, Hmm. Really has a beautiful crumb. It's not dense. It's still a little warm, actually. Mm. You really get the flavor of the butter and just the hint of lemon. And the glaze, the tartness of the glaze really helps offset the sweetness. Mm. Well, thank you for joining me today in Gary's Urban Larder. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. Had a couple of errors, technical errors today in terms of the video, but everything has turned out lovely. So there's our cake. If you like what you saw today, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends. Please ring the notification bell so you don't miss a delicious recipe. I'll see you next time. Bye.